Hello and welcome to the West Tigers podcast. This is episode number 235. Eddie joined by Declan and Gary on a Wednesday night on the eve of the season, boys. It's been a long last couple of weeks, Declan, without that trial game last week. I think everyone's raring to go for Sunday afternoon.
Yeah, I think we talked about it last week. It's just so strange how you go from like pretty much full season with so many games to absolutely nothing for that last week before round one. So very, very excited for Leichhardt. A little bit nervous, I must say, because I've heard a lot of the commentary around the game, but I'm very excited.
It's sort of a different feeling. I think we've touched on it, Gary, this year. I mean, we tried to be optimistic, at the start of 2022 and maybe a little bit more so at the start of 2021. Whereas this year, I think there's genuine reason, at least in the recruits and that last trial performance, to be cautiously optimistic heading into this game.
I think at the bare minimum, you look at our squad for this season, and it's a better squad than last year. There's still not a lot of depth there, but I think that top 17 is a decent squad compared to what we've sent out the last couple of years. So I think the optimism comes from looking at that squad and seeing that we should at least be moving up the ladder.
I think, Declan, there's definitely, like, I've been scanning the usual shows and podcasts and experts having their say, and like, we don't garner a huge amount of respect, and we don't deserve that based on 11 years with no finals. But most of the high-profile pundits, I'm talking, Andrew Johns and Phil Gould and these guys, they don't have us in the bottom four. So there is increased expectation. I think Andrew Johns said we'll finish 8th or 9th.
Yeah, I know, it's great. We still haven't really gathered much respect from, Agenda 360. I'm not sure if we'll talk about that, but yeah, it's good to see, like, when there's like people that genuinely back us. I think Laurie DeCurie had us in his top 8 as well in Triple N, or maybe Wendell Taylor. I can't remember, one of those guys. But yeah, it's good to see that, like, people actually kind of expect us to do something this year, as opposed to last year, where we're all kind of, looking at the ceiling and asked if we thought we would do well, because none of us really believed it.
Yeah, well, I mean, the majority was right last year. I think even all of us had us in the bottom four, and a lot of pundits had us for the wooden spoon. But he's hoping it's a lot different this year, boys. This podcast, we're going to mainly talk about the game, because it's a big game, round one against the Titans at Leichhardt Oval, 6:15 on Sunday. What are some of our strengths and weaknesses? Are you confident? Why have we had problems with the Titans in the past? A shocking overall head-to-head record against the Gold Coast. Also going to talk a little bit about Tim Sheen's return. He coaches his 250th game for the club this Sunday. Big milestone, obviously 10 years apart, so that's very interesting. We've got the return of Yachty's quiz. That's going to be a regular segment on the midweek show. Gary, Yachty, he likes to go into detail. It's all about round one. So if you've got, a few spare minutes when Declan's, waffling on about something, start doing your research on round one.
Look, I to be honest, knowing most of Yachty's questions, I'll have time to do some research while you're reading them out. Because, there's a few long ones in there usually.
Thank you to Yachty, because definitely saved me 45 minutes to an hour. Boys, I said I wouldn't talk about it, but I'm going to spend no more than 2 minutes on it, because I think the fans are sick of talking about it. Mitchell Moses, Declan, he's going to stay at Parramatta, isn't he? I mean, I know it hasn't been announced, but come on.
This is the podcast, Eddie. The group chat, Eddie, has been a lot more aggressive about it. But yeah, I do tend to agree. I think we're in the period right now where Parramatta has probably caught the bluff with Moses about potentially switching clubs, which is why that 5th year is very interesting. Like, when it does get announced that he stays at Eels, if it's going to be a 4-year deal or a 5-year deal, because I do think that Mitch Moses definitely, to some degree, used that as leverage to try and get more from Parramatta. And now I think the Eels have kind of caught onto the fact that he probably was never going to leave. So I'll be very interested to see how long the final deal is when it's announced.
Yeah, I mean, Gary, I listened with interest to your podcast on Sunday night, and I copped a little bit of flack from Steve for being negative on the chat, which is probably fair. I do like to wind people up on the chat and go down certain rabbit holes, particularly with you, Gary. But I tend to agree with Declan. I don't think, there was a fair bit of hype on the weekend that something had changed and, Parramatta hadn't come up with the 5th year. But I'm sort of with Declan that I think, his intention, he stated that intention, I think, last week. For mine, it's all speculation, but that he wanted to stay at Parramatta. And now I think it's just a matter of Isaac Moses draining every last little dot into that contract that he can for him to stay at Parramatta.
I haven't 100% given up hope, but I tend to agree. I think he'll be at Parramatta moving forward in 2024. It's a shame. I wish he was coming across, but that's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I guess it's time to move on and start looking at Plan B options, and really progressing those, because I don't expect him to be here. But I guess while ever there's not an announcement, there's still that little bit of hope there.
I mean, it is running it quite fine, Declan. I mean, I suppose there could be a handshake sort of agreement, and you don't have to announce it before the game. But my timeline was sort of thinking Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday this week. I'd be surprised if there was sort of no announcement before he takes the field, with that risk of blowing out your knee or something terrible like that.
Yeah, I think that I never subscribed to the theory that he re-signed a few weeks ago and they're just waiting for round one. I don't think a club would ever do that, just purely because the later you announce it, the more time it gives a player or a player manager time to back out of the deal or maybe renegotiate something. Because until it's officially announced by the club, then there is like some room to move, isn't there? So I still think that like the deal isn't 100% finished, as Gary kind of alluded to. But I find it I would actually be shocked if he didn't end up signing with the Eagles like pretty soon.
Oh, it wouldn't be a bad lead into Parramatta's first game tomorrow night. They announced Sivo today, and then they back that up with announcing Moses tomorrow. That gives them a fair bit of publicity leading into that first game and a little bit of a lift leading into that first game. So it wouldn't surprise me if there was an announcement tomorrow. It'll be interesting if we get to kick off tomorrow night and there's still being no announcement. That will probably trigger my interest a little bit, but we'll see what happens tomorrow.
Gary, you did mention Plan B, so let's spend a few minutes on that. I'll ask you boys. I'm just going to throw some names at you of guys that potentially are off contract or are in the media that perhaps the club they're at the moment might move them on, and I want you to give a rating out of 10. 10 being go out and throw the checkbook at him, and 0 being no interest whatsoever. For 2024 in the halves. Declan, I'll start with you. Mitchell Pearce.
3 bodies. Yeah. I think we kind of talked about it. I think his body's gone from NRL. Like before he moved from the Knights, it looked like he was really having trouble with like those pec injuries and the shoulder injuries. And I think he's 35 now. So yeah. But if we were dead, I do think that Brooks is a much better option. But if for some reason that Brooks came off the board, I would consider it, but only then, to be honest.
Yeah, Gary, I'm probably not much higher than that. I sort of liked the sentiment behind it maybe a couple of years ago. Wayne Pearce's son finished his career at the Tigers, but for me, once you go to France and spend a couple of years there, you sort of part with it, don't you?
Yeah, I think it's too late. I've got no real interest in it. I'm probably worse than Declan. I think about a 2, and it's not something I'm really interested in seeing happen at this point in time, because if he's 35 now, you're not getting him till next year, and mate, there's not much left in the tank, is there?
Okay, fair enough. Declan, Luke Keary. I don't think he's off contract at the end of next year, but obviously, the Roosters, they've got Sam Walker, they've got Joey Manu floating around who wants to play a key position. What's your interest level there?
I think I would go an 8 on the basis that he gets through this season without another concussion, because I think that he needs to prove that he can put a few games together without worrying about those head knocks before anyone would think about taking him on. It is a little bit of a worry as well, though, because the Roosters, if he had a lot left in the tank, they wouldn't really probably let him go. So that worries me. But I would definitely consider it, to be honest. But it's interesting, though, because they moved him to 7 last year and put Walker at 6. That didn't really work out until they switched positions. So, would you send him as a 5'8", move Dewey somewhere else and keep Brooks? Or it would be interesting to see how he would fit into our team if he was interested in coming.
Gary?
Yeah, I'm pretty harsh on that idea. I'm only about a 6. He's a great footballer, but the concussions worry me a lot. He tends to... What starts worrying me about concussions is when guys are taking relatively light knocks and that's ruling them out of games. And I think that's starting to happen a little bit with Luke Keary. So I'd be very wary about making a move on him just due to those concussions.
Ezra Mam. I don't know Declan when he's off contract. having a look, try to find it on my phone. I know Jock Madden went up to, might be the end of 2024, Ezra Man, but would he be a player that, I know he was only sort of establishing himself last year. I just thought he's the sort of half that Tim Sheens would love because he's very fast.
Yeah, I would love Ezra, man. I would go 10, actually. But you're right. He comes off contract at the end of 2024. But you never know because there's a bit of a logjam at the moment because obviously Reece Walsh is out at the Broncos. So Cobo's playing fullback there. So you'd imagine that you can't really fit. If all those guys want to play spine position, then maybe in some way Ezra Man might get pushed out. I doubt it because I think that he'll eventually replace Adam Reynolds in 7. But if we could have a crack at him, I think he'd be really good. I've got a high opinion of him. He's got a really good all-round game for such a young age. He's really quick. He's really deceptive. And I agree with you. I think that, someone like Benji or Sheens could do a lot with someone like that.
All right, let's just stick to a rating for these ones because they probably, I don't want to spend too much time on it because these guys are off contract at the end of 2023. Gary, Sean Johnson.
No, it's 2.
Newcastle don't appear to have many. What about George Williams? This is the one that's been talked about a little bit amongst us and even in the media. I saw Declan. I think Paul Crawley and Brent Reid were talking about it. Obviously, it would involve a transfer fee potentially because he is under contract at Warrington. But, he's a half that's played in the grand final. Obviously, that link with Bateman, he's still relatively young. Is that the most attractive one from the guys that are not at the club at the moment?
I think he'll be 29 next year, assuming that's when we get him. So he's not that young. And also, he didn't play in the grand final for the Raiders. That was Aiden Caesar the year before. The year after, the Raiders made it in 2019. I think he got here in 2020. So, but he's still a great player, you're right. And I'd be very, very interested to see if we could get it done, especially for maybe this year, if Warrington were willing to give a transfer fee. I doubt it because, they're obviously, done a full preseason expecting him to be the halfback. But, part of me is a little bit, cautious because I don't want to just throw, money at, a star recruit at halfback just because we missed out on Moses. I think there's a part of me that kind of wants to see the first 8 rounds to see how Brooks and Dewey play before we throw a lot of money at someone like George Williams, who's a good player, but he's probably not as bankable as someone like Moses is at the moment.
That was going to be my next question, Declan. It's just how would you handle the situation? Obviously, Dewey's now locked away for another year, so that's been parked for a little while. But Brooks, we've re-signed him in the past, I think, a little bit rashly, at least in terms of the length of deal or the money. There's also the risk that, if he comes out firing the first month, then 6 other clubs want him for 2024. So it's a real delicate sort of balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is. It was really interesting from the West Ham Goods podcast when Tim Sheens was speaking. He said that this is the time where Luke Brooks should be playing his best footy. So a lot of people obviously think that Luke Brooks is backed quite heavily by Tim Sheens, and I tend to agree with him. But I don't think that he's so safe that if he struggles throughout the first half of the season that he's guaranteed to be here next season. I think Sheens will want to see something from him, and that's going to be really interesting for me to see because, there's so much going for us this season in terms of the 4-pack, in terms of, just star power, Appy there as well. So it's going to be really interesting to see how he goes. But yeah, I'm also tempted just to wait and see.
Gary, where do you sit on that? There was some talk that, if Moses came, that would be sort of done with Brooks. That doesn't appear to be happening. So is it more important now to lock him up before he starts potentially firing, or has he not really earned that right yet?
Yeah, I don't think he's really earned that right yet. It wouldn't surprise me if the club did make a move on him soon, but I tend to agree with Declan. I'd like to see how the first couple of months of the season goes, see how we're faring in the halves. I've stated many times going into this season that I'm not happy with where we are at the halves. If we miss out on Mitchell Moses, though, we're at the point now where the season's about to kick off. We might as well take that little bit of time and have a look and make a decision in a month, 2 months' time.
I reckon the perfect scenario, assuming that we miss out on Moses, is to give Luke Brooks a deal like Adam Dewey got, a 1 or 2 year extension on top of this year. to where he's at now, but then also try and find the next big half coming through the grades who's ready to be that understudy / the person who comes in, plays first grade when either Dewey or Brooks gets injured. I think that'd probably be the perfect balance. Just someone who can push Dewey and Brooks. Because to be fair, I don't think they've had that under Maguire in the past. I think they've been pretty safe. And then Brooks as well, he's gotten a lot of years and a lot of money, like from just a few good consistent seasons where he hasn't really built that consistency over a long period of time. So I would like personally to see like a short to medium deal for him.
Yeah, I'm still not in a position where I'd be looking at that yet. I think we're halves are definitely a weakness going into this season. Unless we see improvement soon, I don't want to be putting in Luke Brooks and Adam Dewey as a stopgap measure for next season as well. I really would have loved to have seen us really in a position last year where we've sorted out our halves. We know what our halves are moving forward. I spoke about that for 12 months now, and we're still kind of in that same position we were this time last year, where we're still trying to find what we're doing with the halves. At some point and some point soon, we really need to make a really good decision on that. And if we picked up Moses, I think that solves that issue. But if we miss out on Moses, there needs to be a clean decision made at some point soon.
All right, boys, let's move on. Tim Sheens. He's 10 years between games as head coach, but he returns for his 250th Declan. I think he's a very sentimental person. I think he mentioned that he doesn't really care about numbers. He more cares about wins, which I'm fine with that. But what about one word to describe his return as head coach? What do you reckon?
I'm gonna go with stability. I think that with all the experience he brings, I think he's brought a sense of calmness and long-term planning to the organization. I think it's a really positive move we've got going forward because like we know who the coach is going to be 5 years from now, which is something we've never really been able to see. And I think Tim Sheens knows what he needs to do to build up so that Benji Marshall can have a successful transition to coach. But you look at other NRL coaches, and it's kind of just like it's self-preservation in a way a lot of the time. Like look at Adam O'Brien and the Knights with moving Kalen Ponga to 6. That's just purely a move to get wins so that he can keep his job. But I think Sheens, he brings that sense of calmness, that sense of kind of long-term planning because he's just so experienced and there's not really a lot of pressure because he knows he's an intern coach.
It is interesting, Gary, though. Like, I mean, I know what he's done for our club and his overall record, it speaks for itself. But like his last 10 years, I think he spent 18 months at Hull KR and was sacked by them. He left Widnes, I think that was during COVID, after about 6 months. I think his last, real job was coaching the Australian team. That might have been in 2015. So it's not like, NRL clubs were knocking down his door. I just wrote down gamble because I'm with Declan for what he says, but I still think there's a high element of risk about this appointment. And I'm being as respectful as I can because I really do respect and like Tim Sheens, but I just still think my word for the whole season is just unknown. I just don't know what to expect because his football was so different back in the day, and it's been so long since he coached in the NRL. For me, like 2 or 3 years is 10 years now, the way the amount of rule changes they've had. And that just worries me a little bit. It excites me a bit because it's unknown, but do you know what I'm saying?
The big thing for me is I think he's brought positivity back into the club. If you have a look over the last couple of years, looking into our club from the outside, it's looked fairly negative. It's looked fairly dour. You have a look at the Tiger Tails behind the scenes, look at the club. That looked quite negative. I think there's been a change there's more of a positive outlook amongst the player group, amongst the club. Now, that's all well and good for now. And I was speaking to someone involved in the club through the week, and the thing said that the club is very positive at the moment, but they haven't been punched in the face yet. And that's going to come soon. So I think there's a lot of positivity around the club now. What's really going to be the telling point is how they react when things go wrong, which they have to at some point during the season. I think that's going to show that whether this move, and I think this move is largely about culture. I think bringing Tim Sheens was largely about changing the culture in the club, a much more positive culture. I think that will really show through once things get a bit tough at some point during the season.
Yeah, I understand the whole argument that, what are the tactics for the Tigers going to look like? Because, he has been out of the game for a very long time. But for me, those fears were kind of alleviated looking at that, at the second trial against the Raiders, because the way we attacked, especially when we had good ball, like it was very straight. There was lots of offloads. It wasn't very sideways when we were doing really well. And I think that when Tim Sheens left, I think the game was kind of like, because it was so much, there was so much defensive orientated wrestling that you kind of needed to spread the balls and go a little bit sideways when you had good ball. But now teams like Penrith and the Roosters, they're so good at kind of playing straight in through the middle with offloads and like straight running, which I thought we did really, really well against the Raiders. So for that reason, I'm a little bit less worried about the tactics transitioning over for this season.
Yeah, it's interesting. I did listen, Gary, to that Behind the Raw podcast with Chris Ryan, and a lot of it I thought was boring because he's talking about, favourite holiday destination, who he wants to come to dinner with. And really, all Tim Sheens is interested in is football. He's just a football head, and he didn't really want a bar of those questions. But I found it interesting he was talking a little bit about Benji. And I wonder how much coaching, hands-on, Tim Sheens is doing. I get the feeling that, it's maybe 50-50 this year, and Tim's obviously taking all the heat with the press conferences, going to the lunches and speaking to players, when they're dropped or when they're promoted. But I wouldn't surprise me at all if Benji's the man running the interchange and doing some of the tactics on Sunday. What do you reckon?
If you have a look at the trial we played at Belmore the other week, it was Benji Marshall on the walkie-talkie. It was Benji Marshall giving the halftime speech. So I think there's a very big element to what you're saying. I think Tim is probably that guiding hand this year as Benji starts to develop as a coach and take control of the team. I think it's going to be a transition where over time, Benji just starts to do more and Tim starts to do less. But even when I was out at training a couple of weeks ago, the session was ran by Benji with help from Robbie and the other assistants, but Benji was the loudest voice on the field. For the most part, Tim Sheens sat in the seats on the side of the field watching, and then went out and did some individual coaching with certain players. So I think there is a fair bit to that Benji is doing a lot of the coaching, and is I wouldn't call him an out and out assistant coach, because I think he's doing a lot of the main stuff, and I think a lot of our attacking structures are coming from Benji as well. So I think he's much more involved than a regular assistant coach.
I mean, Declan, if you are Benji, what a godsend that is. Have your first year, as an assistant, you're preparing for 2025, but you're almost getting this sort of trial run where you don't have to face the pressure if you get beat by 40, or you can work on things behind the scenes without the heat. I think that makes perfect sense, doesn't it? To let him do some of the hands-on stuff without telling it to the world.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. But as Gary kind of said before, the club hasn't really been punched in the face yet. So, like, when we do lose a few games in a row, I do think that'll kind of pressure get turned up from the media. Because do you guys remember when we were getting absolutely pumped last year, and the headline was like, "Where's Sheens and Benji? Because they've got to take over this next year." So he kind of got dragged into it then before he even started coaching. So I can't imagine it'd be too different when he's in the building, like coaching people.
Well, and I would hope if we do get into a situation where we are struggling, if he is pulled back a bit from the coaching and Benji's doing a lot more of it, hopefully he's right there when the going does get tough, because Benji's a young guy, coaching-wise. He's played with a lot of the players in the team. So all those things are difficult things to navigate. You have a look, Nathan Brown was a guy who went from playing with players to coaching them, and the problems he had in that. So I think that's something Tim really needs to keep an eye on and needs to control. And if Benji is the quasi head coach at the moment, then hopefully there's just enough support there to get him through that, because it's a big change from going being a player into a year or so of media and then straight into coaching. It's happened really quick. It's been a really quick progression, and hopefully that support's there to help him do that.
Yeah, I mean, Declan, the target is going to be firmly on the club's back, as it always is, with shows like 360. And I saw Paul Kent took no longer than 4 minutes to bring up, his narrative for the season was Sheens and Benji are already disagreeing. But he didn't actually say that. He said there's been some quizzical looks. I mean, what a pathetic thing to say after you haven't even played a game. Yeah, seriously, I don't want to incite violence or madness, but if he's sitting on the hill at Leichhardt, like apparently he likes to do, can someone just go and tip their beer on his head on Sunday afternoon? Because he is just a gibberer as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I know. And it's just so disappointing because, like, we've talked about it so much. I think the club probably had one of the most successful off seasons that, I've ever seen, pretty much from any club, maybe outside of the Roosters. And there was just so many, like, good things you could say. And, I'm pretty sure if you rewinded back to the end of last season, and if you asked Paul Kent, can the Tigers, like, have like that kind of recruitment spree, he would have laughed and said absolutely not. But there's just no acknowledgement on shows like that. And I think the problem is there's no nuance either. Like, it's either 0 or 100. Either like there's no problem at all between Benji Marshall and Tim Sheens, or they're absolutely fighting and it's like an absolute basket case. There's no nuance in discussion. Like, yeah, look, maybe they do have some like different philosophical points of view. Because
that's healthy, isn't it?
Yeah. And that's what Tim Sheens said in the podcast. Like, Benji, he's not an identical clone of Tim Sheens. He does have his kind of own points of view of the game. And I think that's healthy as long as it's not like it doesn't go to like an extreme degree where it's a full on argument and it's dysfunctional. Then I don't really have a problem with it. And I think it was just kind of a cheap shot, to be honest, to bring it up on a platform like that with pretty much no context either.
Differing ideas are actually really healthy. Having a wide variety of ideas, people not always agreeing on ideas is really healthy as well. Steve and I had a disagreement on the pod the other night. We're not off with each other after that disagreement. It's not a bad thing to not always agree. It's not a bad thing to have different ideas. Declan argues with me all the time. He's wrong, but he knows he's wrong, so it's okay. So having differing ideas isn't necessarily a bad thing. I don't see that there seems to be too many problems between them. They seem pretty happy after the trial game win against the Raiders. I don't think there's a major issue, even if they are not always on the same page. I don't think that's a major problem.
Yeah, I think Steve knocked you for 6 to the point where you were actually arguing for his point of view towards the end because you knew that you got it wrong.
Well, I did come up with a couple of points that would have won him the argument after, but he didn't say them during the argument, so I've still got myself down for the win.
Okay. That makes one of us.
Let's talk about the game. Big game this Sunday night. I don't know if you can call it Sunday night. It's probably going to be perfect weather, Gary. I'm very flat because I'm going to be missing probably, I reckon, maybe only my second or third Leichhardt game in 20 years because I've got a under-21s cricket team that I coach who are in the grand final out at Parramatta.
Priorities, Eddie, priorities.
No, I know. But, I mean, if they happen to get trampled and lose by 3 o'clock, I'll be straight to Leichhardt. So, but I've still got that ticket in my back pocket thinking 6:15 start. But let's have a look at our team. I know you guys did your predictions on Sunday night. Declan, not too many surprises. I think we spoke about the 50-50. Staines won that one on the wing. Offahengawi named to start at lock. The bench was interesting to me. It looks like Kapoa may be used in that sort of back row role unless there's an injury in the back line.
Yeah, I think that looking back from what we said on the podcast, it probably was a little bit of wishful thinking that John Bateman would play in that 17 spot, and Kapoa's just taken that position because, yeah, as we all know, I think he's going to slot into that back row spot. So, yeah, I think we did pretty well overall, except Gary, obviously. He kind of took some swings and some misses, but, we learn for next year, don't we?
Adamant there's going to be late changes. I think he's been on the phone to Sheens.
Yeah, I still think Polo will get the start at 13. So, and if he gets a start at 13, that gets pretty close to the squad that I thought it might be. So we'll see what happens come about 5 o'clock on Sunday evening, mate.
I was waiting, Gary, for the shock in the lineup because Tim Sheens, he was a master of it, and it used to wind the West Tigers faithful up big time on the old forum. But not really any shocks. I think he's sort of rewarded the guys who have done well, at least in that last trial, and obviously so much excitement around seeing our new captain Appy out there for the first time.
Yeah, I can't wait for that. I think we saw a fairly positive style of football played in that last trial. I think Appy's just going to add to that. I think it will change our style a fair bit. His ability to get the front rowers one-on-one, I think is going to make a big difference to our game. So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that game develops now from what we saw in the game against Canterbury to what we see this weekend. Now Appy comes into the side and he's leading us around the park, because I think that's really where our direction is going to come from this year. I think he's going to control the game for us, and a lot of clubs control the game at halfback. I think we're going to go back a little bit to the days where we had Robbie and we'll be controlling the game from dummy half.
Yeah, are we 100% sure Appy's going to play? Because wasn't there some mail that he needs to pass the fitness test before the game? So I think he's like not in doubt, but I think there's a little asterisk next to his name for the game.
Yeah, I've heard talk that there's still issues around his calf and that he's not 100% to play on the weekend. I hope that's wrong, because I think he's the really big signing for us over the last 2 years. We've been waiting for a long time to see him put on a Tigers jersey, and I really want it to be this weekend, because I think getting off to a really good start this weekend, getting a win this weekend is crucially important to how our season's going to play out.
Yeah, I mean, especially being at Leichhardt the first two Sundays, everyone, rugby league world will be watching that, and it'd be so terrible, really, to lose those first two games, especially against the Gold Coast and Newcastle. You mentioned no Bateman, Declan. I don't think that's a big surprise. There was a little bit of, scuttlebutt about potential injury, and Tigers didn't have the scans, but I'm sure they were across it all. But he looks like he needs a feed to me. Geez, he looks tiny.
Well, I'm sure Black is quite slimming, Eddie. So I'm sure he's still shredded, because he would have been training very hard. But yeah, I think it's a little bit disappointing. Probably a little bit unrealistic, as I said before, from our perspective, that we're hoping he was going to play, because obviously you want a full strength team come round one. But I think he'll get in shape pretty quickly, hopefully. And I'm happy that the chairman came out and said that he doesn't have a long-term injury. Like, that could also be a lie as well. But hopefully we'll take him at his word, and hopefully he'll be right for round 2 against Newcastle, because I'm very excited to see him against Jackson Hastings, based on all the kind of rumours we heard towards the end of last season.
Well, one of the interesting things with him not playing is Bloor gets that time in the second row, and with the amount of game time he's had over the last couple of years, it'll be really interesting to see where his game is at now after missing a whole season. We saw a little bit in the trial. I thought he looked great in the trial. He's now got that starting spot for this weekend, and he's going to have to play more minutes than he played in that trial. So it'll be interesting to see how he goes with that. I think I'm very disappointed when Bateman's not playing, but I think it's a real good opportunity for Bloor to put his best foot forward as well.
Declan, the Titans, they've had our number pretty much since they entered the competition, considering they've been pretty much a failure of a club, a bit like us the last 10 years. 24 times we've played them, we've only won 9. Why do you think we struggle so much against the Gold Coast?
Well, I was actually having this debate with one of my friends who thinks that they're our bogey team. I do tend to disagree a little bit, because I think a bogey team is a team that no matter how much form you have going in, that you always lose to them. I think with the Titans, obviously the game last year, it was just an absolute nightmare for both teams. I think it was who was trying their hardest to lose it. And we won that contest in that respect, because, we tried that little bit harder to lose the game towards the end. So I think you could probably write off that one, because both teams were awful. But I don't know about you guys. It just seems that every time we played the Titans, especially in Sydney, we came out really flat in the first 20 minutes. I remember Robbie Farah's first game back in 2018 from Leichhardt Oval, and we had Moses Mbai, Benji Marshall was back. I think Corey Thompson was at fullback. The team was going quite well, and we thought we were just going to trample them, but we just came out and had the worst first half, and then it was the game was pretty much gone, because we just didn't have that intensity. So I think that we don't really play them very often, because they're a Queensland team, which is why it's not really like a thing that pops up to many Tigers fans that we have a poor record against them. But I think that if we're going to win this game, the first 20 minutes are absolutely crucial for the team and the Leichhardt crowd.
To me, our bad form against the Titans really comes down to one thing. We struggle against sides with big, mobile sort of back rollers and props. And if you look back over the 10 years, like past 10 years, the Gold Coast quite often has those sort of players. They've got David Fafita right now, who is that exact type of prop that we've always put forward, second rower, that we've always struggled with. Even if you go back all the way back to Dave Taylor, who didn't have a great career, but was that big-bodied, skillful sort of guy. They're the type of guys we struggle with, and the Gold Coast always seem to have that sort of player in their side. And I think a lot of our difficulty with them comes down to those sort of players being in the Gold Coast team.
Yeah, I was just going to touch on, I think it's a mentality thing as well. I mean, I reckon in half those times we've lost to the Gold Coast, we would have started favourites. And like Declan said, we come out like we're asleep. And I think they're a pretty dangerous team to get in the first game. I know, Declan, last time we come off a World Cup year was 2018. And, we had the Roosters in Melbourne to start, and everyone thought that was going to be a disaster. But they were sort of the teams, I think, that you prefer to play coming off a World Cup year, because a lot of their senior guys have only had 4-week pre-seasons. But I sort of think the Titans, I think they've got points in them, don't they?
Yeah, they've got a lot of points in them, and they've got X Factor as well, like Tino, David Fafita, AJ Brenton as well. I'm not 100% sure what Kieran Foran and Sam Bell is going to bring to this team. I think they've a little bit overhyped, to be honest, with their signings. But, they've definitely got enough talent to win this game. I think it just comes down to how both teams defend, because I think both teams could probably score points, but I think the team that defends the best is going to win this game quite comfortably, probably.
I can just see it being a high-scoring game. I can see it being, for a neutral fan, one of the more entertaining games of the week. But in saying that, we only conceded 4 points in that last trial, and I think that's a fair point. If we could concede, less than 20, I think we'll win this game.
Look, I think it could quite possibly come down to our ability on our own line to turn them away. I thought that was really good against Canberra. Our ability, the amount of times Canberra were in our 20 and we just kept turning them away, especially early in the game. Canberra had a lot of ball early in that trial game, a lot of ball on our line, and we turned them away time and time again. I think it sounds weird to say, but I think a big part of our season could probably be determined in that first 20 minutes to half an hour. If we're in a situation where the Gold Coast come out and hit the ground running and they're down our end of the field and they're pressuring our line, I think if we can see a side that's turning them away time and time again, like we saw against Canberra, then that really starts to build confidence in the team, and it starts, and that can just run straight through the team. If we get to that situation, I think that's a real positive. So I'm really interested to see how we defend our line against them this weekend, because I know we spent most of the season talking about how our attacking structures are going to be different, how we're going to be throwing the ball around. We've spoken about our forwards passing the ball after the trial. I think the most impressive part from that trial was our defence, and if we can show that this weekend, it goes a big way to setting us up for not just a good start to the season, but a good season.
Yeah, I really agree with Gary in the point that I think that if we play really well in that first 20 minutes, I think that we've got the superior bench. I think that when Alex Twal and Fanua come on, and guys like Tino come off with guys like Furueka coming off for them, I think there's a lot of good play to be had up the middle of the field, because we've got two very mobile props, and like Fanua who can definitely break a tackle as well, and someone like Api Costa, if he's still in the field and if he plays, I think the game will really open up for us in that period before half time. So if we can just stick with them for the first 20 minutes, I think I'll be confident that we can win pretty comfortably.
All right, boys, we'll save our predictions. We'll go through our round one tips, and we'll give the Tigers Titan ones last. But Gary, if you were Tim Sheens in the sheds, or Benji Marshall, whoever is the coach of the team, what would be your final message before they hit that Leichhardt turf? Because let's be honest, the Tigers fans at Leichhardt, they haven't had much to cheer about the last few years. There's been some full houses, and even the last game last year was an absolute shocker.
Yeah, it'll all be about defence. I think they've done all the work in attack. I'll be drumming into them. Their structures are about holding the position. So I think we saw in the first trial, were getting sucked in a lot. Tommy Talau was coming in, not Nofaluma, whoever the Scolari who was playing outside, Talau was coming in. I think if we can hold the middle and then stop our backs from rushing in, that would be my key messages leading into it. All about defence, because I think if we get the defence right, the attack will take care of itself.
Yeah, Declan, my message would be let's blitz them in the middle the first 20 minutes, because I know Sheens is going to promote the ball and the pass is all stuck against Canberra. But, if you don't earn the right playing that style of football, you can get lapped. So I really think we've got the potential to win the middle in a lot of games this year, particularly against this Gold Coast side. That'd be my message in the first 15 minutes. I want to see us making 60 metres a set.
Yeah, I think yours kind of feeds into mine, but mine is intensity, just in everything you do. Intensity in attack from the first tackle, especially intensity in defence, because I kind of talked about it earlier, not just against the Titans, but it just feels like the last few years, whenever we started the game favourites at Leichhardt, we've really seemed to kind of let the moment get to us and start off really lethargic and slow, where the other team scored a quick early try. So I think Tim Sheens is going to drum out intensity for this game to start.
A key indicator from how our team was going to play, you could see quite early in most games last year, and it was line speed. If that line speed is good at the start of the game, that's that intensity coming through. So I'll be watching the line speed early in the game to see kind of what sort of team showing up. We've had a team over the last couple of years who at times have kind of given up. We don't want to see that anymore. We want to see a team that goes out there, plays full-hearted, and that's shown through line speed. So let's go.
We used to be round one specialists, boys, but the last couple of years have been disappointing. So let's hope and pray for Sunday. Let's go through the games very quickly. I just want a name. Which team you think is going to win and by how much? Declan, Eels Storm Thursday night.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go the Eels with this one. I think that I think at home they're going to be a bit tough to beat for the Storm, who usually struggle against the Eels anyway.
Storm, Gary, they've got this 20 years or 19 years they haven't lost in round one, which is incredible. But I looked at both these sides. I don't know if they got a heap of injuries, but I looked at both of them and I thought, gee, both sides look beatable. I didn't know who to tip.
Yeah, I'm going the Eels as well. I don't think it'll be by a lot, just over a converted try, so about 8 points difference, but I think the Eels will get them.
Warriors Knights, this is a bit like our game, Declan. Who knows what to expect here?
Yeah, I'm going to go the Warriors purely because it's at home, and I think the Knights will take a little bit of time to gel with their combinations.
Gary, Panthers at home Friday night against the Broncos.
Yeah, I think the Panthers will get that one.
It's probably smarting from their loss to St Helens. Saturday afternoon, I think this is the moral of the week. Manly, Declan, they're going to flog your Bulldogs. I think they are morals.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough day for my Bulldogs, but especially with Luke Thompson out, I think they're a little bit vulnerable in the middle, so I'm going to tip Manly as well. And Turbo is in my fantasy team, so I hope he carves up.
Hopefully he plays.
That too.
Gary, Cowboys play the Raiders in Tropics. This is a bit cruel for Canberra, sending him up to North Queensland in round one, 5:30 kickoff. There'll still be daylight.
Yeah, I think the Cowboys will get that one pretty easy. I expect, if Canberra anything like they played against us, the Cowboys are going to run up a big score.
Declan, this was the game of the round. It's lost a little bit of shine for me with Nicho Hynes out. I thought the Sharks would win that if he's there, but now maybe the Souths have got too many points in them. What do you reckon? Shark Park?
Yeah, I think Bunnies are too classy, and I think they showed in the finals last season that they're a cut above the Sharks at the moment, especially with Nicho Hynes out. So I'm going to go the Bunnies, by 14 points.
Gary, what percentage chance, because I know you love percentages, of the Dolphins upsetting the Roosters on Sunday afternoon at Suncorp?
Yeah, I'm nearly going into the negatives. I'm going to go Eddie here. I'm going to go for about 9%.
Well, I think they'd take 9%.
That's quite generous, but that's your favourite number, so...
I can't see an upset, although I'd love to see it against the Roosters. And our game, boys, how about a score and a man of the match and maybe a headline out of the game? I'll start because I haven't given you any notice on this. I'm going to go 28-26 Tigers. Man of the match, I'm going to go for Adam Doueihi. It's funny what an off-season can do, Declan. I'm all positive about Adam Doueihi at the moment.
Yeah.
And my headline will just be, I don't know my headline. Come back to me. Declan, have you got a score?
It's your show.
I know. Just making up.
So I'm going to tip Tigers 22 points to 4.
That's ambitious. That
I reckon Fanua Pole is going to come on from the bench
He's
and
gonna
not
start.
start at 30. He's going to come off the bench and he's going to have a man of the match performance. And my headline is black and gold never fold.
that's the old
Black, gold, and white.
careful with the West fans. Yeah, that's
You'll get in trouble there, Declan.
Be in trouble. Declan 22-4. I'll be shocked, Gary, if it's that low scoring. But I like the confidence. What's your prediction?
26-18. I think the Tigers will get up. Man of the match. I'm going to go for Stefano. I think he's ready for a big season. And I think he'll come out round one firing. So I think Steph's going to have a big game. I think he'll get a try. So big game from Steph. And headline will be.
I've got my headline now, Gary. It's Tigers' roll as beer tipped on Kent's head.
Yeah, mine will revolve around Sheens. I think Sheens will be the story after the game, and Tigers win on Sheens' return, something like that.
All right, boys, it's time for the quiz. Lucky we don't have Steve because he'd be trembling at the moment. You got his quiz. I've just got to find it now on my phone. It's all around round one. As you know, we did have a outstanding record in round one up to the last couple of years where we have lost. So, buzz in with your name. Question 1. What out of 23 games, out of 23 round ones, how many times have the West Tigers won?
Declan.
Yep.
Would it be... I'm going to go 15.
Gary, you want to have a...
Yeah, I'm going to go 14.
Oh, Gary was right. 14 wins, 8 losses and a draw. So that's still a very good round one record. Question 2. This is multiple choice, so I'll give you both a crack at it. Where haven't the West Tigers played a first up match in? A, Queensland. B, Victoria. C, New Zealand. D, ACT. Or E, New South Wales.
I'm gonna go with Victoria.
Gary?
As a point of difference, I'm going to go New Zealand.
You're right, Gary. No round one games in New Zealand. I think we played the Storm in 2007 at the old Olympic Park, the graveyard. Question 3. Which 3 current NRL teams have the West Tigers yet to play in round one? If you can name 2 of them, I'll give it to you.
Dolphins.
Gary? Yep, that's one.
And South Sydney.
No, we have played South Sydney in round one. That was
we?
under Jason Taylor. We had a big win. Robbie Farah playing for South. I remember that. Declan, you want to guess one of the other 2? Haven't played in round. They both made the 8 last year. That's a clue.
Would it be the Raiders?
And Manly.
No. We played the Raiders in round 1 in 2021. I remember getting whacked at.
Oh, yeah.
So it's Panthers and the Cowboys, boys. So you're both wrong there.
I got one.
Which club have the West Tigers played the most times in round 1? And the years were 2003, 2006, 2008, 2014, and 2020. 5 times played them in round 1. I reckon we've won probably 4 of them as well. Just looking at this.
Declan.
Yeah.
Was it the Warriors?
Nope.
Roosters.
Gary, we haven't beaten the Roosters 4 times in our history, let alone 4
That
times.
is a good point. I didn't listen to that part.
Oh, and you should get this one. Sort of, we had a big when Sheen was here last time. Dragons.
Yeah. Dragons.
Which team have we played in round 1 where the game went to Golden Point?
Declan. Sharks.
No.
Where was that at, Declan?
Leichhardt Oval.
Was 17.
Well done.
2012.
2012. I remember that one well.
You still only get 1 point despite answering 4 questions no one asked.
All right, this is a tough one, boys. Name the 7 West Tigers 2005 premiership winners who debuted for a club in a round 1 game. 7 premiership winners from 2005 that debuted in a round 1 game. I'll give you a clue.
Debuted for the Tigers or debuted for...
Debuted for the West Tigers in a round 1 game. I'll give you a clue. There was only one in 2005 that debuted in round 1 for the club. There were 4 in 2004. You should be able to get a couple of them because they were new signings.
Scott Prince.
Yep. One at the back.
Brett Hodgson.
Brett Hodgson. Yeah.
Badawira.
Badawira was debuted in 2005 for us. Yep. And there was his other centre debuted in 2004.
Yep. Elford.
2003, we had one debutant. He's back on the coaching staff.
Robbie Farah.
No, he didn't debut round 1.
Heinington.
Yeah, I know. That was Tim Sheen's first game. And 2 of the old stalwarts debuted, obviously, the first game of the club at Campbelltown in 2000.
John Skandalis and Mark O'Neill.
Mark O'Neill. That's the 7, boys. Okay, this is the last one. I'm not sure I'll get this right, so I've got to concentrate here. It's a bit of a story, so I want you to listen to the story and then react.
Can I go make a cup of tea first or get ready for bed?
Sunday, February the 6th in the year 2000. So in other words, it was round 1, 2000. First game for the club. Our West Tigers were playing their first game. We were locked in a battle with the future premiers in Brisbane. John Skandalis scored the club's maiden try. Joel Kane scored 3 tries and was 4 from 4 with conversions for a personal total of 20 points. The game was drawn 24-all. From then to now, only one other black, white and gold player has recorded a hat-trick. I assume he means in round 1. A hat-trick in round 1, albeit in a different season. Who was it and which year? A tough one. I don't even recall this.
Did I have no idea. Wait, so were they on debut?
No.
No. I'll give you a clue. It was 2006. That's half the question, half the answer. 2006 round 1, we played the Dragons. Who scored the hat-trick? I wouldn't have got this.
Oh, was it Tanya Tuaki?
No, I would have thought someone like that. Paul Fadawira. I didn't think he got many hat-tricks, but there you go. 2006 Dragons, Paul Fadawira got a hat-trick. So
I remember the game. It was at ANZ Stadium, and Benji got the fractured cheekbone.
Fractured cheekbone, he did. Yeah. I think we won at the death for a field goal or something like that, or a late try.
Yeah, late. I think that's when Benji did the cheekbone. He threw a pass for the final try, I think.
Yeah. All right, boys. Well, I don't know who won the quiz, but I thank Yachty for it. It's challenging, as usual. We'll have to go through the tape, as you like to do, Gary, and listen to the podcast back 7 times, which I probably won't be doing.
Mate, I've told you, I know you have it on repeat. Only the ones you're on. Don't listen to the ones you're not on, but you have yours on repeat. All
right, boys. Good luck Sunday. What's your plan, Declan? Are you going to be getting out there early and watching the lower grades? Because I did see, and pull me up if I'm wrong, but the next 2 Sundays, 3 games of football at Waikato. It's back to 1997. How good is that?
Yeah, it will be good. I wish I could see all 3 grades, but I'll be at the Ambush event with Gary doing the panel. And I think Steve said that we could watch the second half of Cup. So I'm very excited to see Jerome Bulla play at fullback because there's been lots of talk about him. But yeah, so for anyone that is keen beforehand to go to the Ambush event, we'll be there. So it should be good. And Steve will be there as well, which won't be as good, but still come anyway.
I'll be there in spirit, Gary. Where is it for the people that might be interested in the area?
Leichhardt Bolo. So 10, 15-minute walk from the ground. Picking off about 3. I think most of us are going to get there around 2. Bit of a West Tigers podcast panel discussion. So Declan, Steve, and I will have a bit of a chat, and people in the audience will have a little bit of a chat. And then our special guest for the night is the afternoon is Justin Pascoe. So he'll be having a little bit of a chat, and we'll be talking all things West Tigers.
Very good. I wonder if he'll be out on the town if we have a win, Gary, on Sunday night.
Well, quite possible. I don't know. I don't tend to follow Justin Pascoe around that much, mate.
Neither do I. All right, boys. Thank you. Enjoy Sunday, and no doubt you'll be doing Sunday Night Live, I assume, Gary, with Joel. Is that going to be possible from the ground, or are you not sure yet?
I don't know. We haven't actually spoken about it yet, so I don't know what the podcast plans are for after the game. So we better organise that over the next couple of days. Have a chat at least, anyway.
All right, we'll let you know. All right, thanks, boys.
Thank you.
Rising up, straight to the top. Had the guts, got the glory. Went the distance, now we're not gonna stop. Just a team with a will to